Hello, 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 everyone. We are here with Kip Moore, whose third album, Slowheart, just came out last Friday. I'm always curious, we see you guys so much in advance of these records.
Yeah.
What is it like to finally have it out the door?
Man, I still don't quite have that relieved feeling yet, because I'm still trying to see what's going to happen after this first week. But you put so much into it. I mean, I worked on this record for over a year, so to finally have it out, it's definitely a heavy burden. Not a burden. It's a heavy weight that I've been carrying for so long. Having to hold these songs and not play them live, having to wait to see how people respond to them, and then now to finally, have so many people raving about the record. It's a big weight off of my shoulders. Where now I'm just itching to go play them live.
Right. Before this record, you took the first extended break of your career, went to Costa Rica, went to Iceland, a bunch of other places. How long did it take before you sort of wanted to come back to music? You were ready to start writing songs?
I'll be honest, I didn't want to come back. I struggled with it. Because, but it was, when I say that, like, in the midst of it, I went through, even before my career took off, all I was doing was chasing music. For so many years, it was working odd jobs, working, to make ends meet, and it was always writing, recording, and always trying to prepare for when it did take off and trying to get to where I was going. So it's all I've done for 13 years, before 6 years ago when everything took off, and then it really got fast-paced. So I haven't had a moment to myself to really sit and think. I'll have like 5 days off in between a tour, and that's not enough to really recharge.
That's not enough of a break?
No. So, I found myself, for the first time in ages, I was sleeping. I was sleeping through a whole night without waking up, with my mind going crazy about, I got to change that lyric, and I got to do this and that. And it was, I was at such peace, and I was surfing every morning, and I was rock climbing, and I had this just easiness about me. So it wasn't that I wasn't ready to get back making music. I was scared to get back into that rut that I was in.
Right. It's interesting you say that, because to me there's such like a joy and a freeness to this record. How much of that comes from this break? Were all these songs written post?
Half of it was written before.
Okay.
And I will say this, like, before I left, I was in one of the best musical grooves that I'd ever been in. And I had a blast touring last year. The music was always my outlet. That's where I was having joy. It was all the travel and all the sleepless nights that were stacking up that were beginning to be hard for me. But the music was always my escape. So I hit a really sweet spot of a groove, and that's when I realized I wanted to start writing a record, because I had something to say. I was feeling all kind of different things. And then I kind of became another guy after songs like Good Thing, Try Again. There was just a more openness to my own vulnerabilities that I wasn't quite willing to face before I left.
I think even your record label did not know you were working on this album. When did you know you were working on it, as in like an intentional body of work?
When, same thing happened with Wild Ones, in a sense of, there's a creative headspace that happens with me, and I can tell a difference. And it just happens, and usually it happens at a time in my life that's a poignant moment where there's a lot of internal things that I'm really facing at that particular time, and I have something to say. And my creative juices were just flowing, and so when I went in the track, I tracked like 4 songs, and when I came out, they felt magical to me. So when I turned them into the label, I was like, hey, I've just been kind of messing around. What do you guys think? And it was the most, exuberance that I'd ever seen out of my record label, even more than Up All Night, for that matter. So they were like, whatever you're doing, go capture this, go make a record. They knew that I had produced the first 4 tracks. They were like, just go do it yourself. Right. And that's a rare thing in Nashville to get to do that.
I'm interested with the producing. I mean, that's a whole new role, certainly a bigger responsibility than you've had before with these records. What did you get out of that, or what did you sort of enjoy about that new sort of challenge?
Well, I co-produced the first 2, and I was heavily involved with producing the first 2, but there was still so much. And I love Brett James. We did some great things together, but there were lots of we saw things so different so often, and he's amazing what he does. I had a very distinct vision, and I didn't want to be deterred from what I was hearing in my head. And I knew the sounds that I wanted. I knew what I wanted to say. I knew the arrangements that I wanted. And I had such a freedom of going in and capturing all that. And as it was coming back exactly like I was hearing it, I had a pure joy making this record.
Was there any song where you were kind of like, I honestly don't know where to go with this?
Guitar Man.
That was the one?
Guitar Man was the only song on the record. Like I said, I had all these arrangements in my head going in. I'd sang all these parts on little recorders, and okay, this was going to happen here in the third verse on bar 2, all these things. And Guitar Man, I had this big kind of bombastic band kind of arrangement going, and we were just fighting each other the whole time musically in the room. So that was a super discouraging time for me, because we spent probably 2 hours trying to record it, and we were running out of time. And I was just so sad about it, because I was like, this song's not going to make the record. And luckily, as I told the whole band to come out and like, let's just take a minute, let's regroup, and let's give it one more go, Tom Bukovac and Dave Cohen stayed behind in the room and just kind of started feeding off of each other. Mm-hmm. Just one guitar and an organ. And I told the engineer, I said, that's it right there. That's what we got to capture. So I told him to hit record. I walked back in the room, and I didn't even really let him know. I just said, hey, just kind of mess around for a minute. I'm going to go in the vocal booth and just kind of feed off of this. And we counted it off and sang it. It was all one take, and that's the scratch vocal is the vocal on the record.
How hard is that song to sing? I mean, it's
tough.
That's a lot of work.
And you can hear me. That's the cool thing is you do a scratch vocal to kind of guide a band, and then you come back and you do your real vocal. And you'll, usually making a record, you'll do several takes to get your best. So the vocal that you hear on that record and the band, that's all in one take. That's the scratch vocal, and you can hear me trying to kind of catch up with my phrasing and my breaths, those kind of things. But I thought that was what the song needed to be.
I like that. The single "More Girls Like You" is doing very well at radio. It's actually your highest hit since the debut record. I'm curious, seeing that now, like years later, after having struggled with Wild Ones to find success there, do you feel like sweet relief, or do you just not have as much pressure on the charts? You don't need it as much.
I definitely. Every artist would like to have hit records. Merle Haggard always said he was dreaming of one last big hit. Tom Petty, all those guys wanted hit records. But the difference is they didn't chase that. They, which I feel like when I made this record, I wanted to keep everything authentic with what I was feeling and whatever vision I had. And I don't worry about radio when I'm writing and when I'm recording, but I do think about it once I step back and I'm like, oh,
and definitely
do I have anything here that's going to work? Because you want the masses to hear your work, and that's the best way for the masses to hear it.
Right. Let's talk about what we hear on this record a little bit. You mentioned Good Thing earlier, and you've long said that you're a big Motown guy, but this is the first time we sort of get to hear it in your record. Tell me about getting that on here, where that came from, all of this.
Good Thing came from a certain time in my life a little while back where I was just... I was feeling positive about a lot of things going on. I was feeling positive about...
A short time in your life, a very brief period.
I was feeling positive about the music that I was making, different things in my life that were making me feel good. And I was listening to a lot of Motown at that time. When I sat down to track it, that melody that just kind of came out, it immediately felt like an old school Motown track. So... that was one of the most lighthearted, feel-good songs on the whole record.
This is also the first time we see Kip Moore singing songs that other writers have written.
Yes.
Plead the Fifth, and also again on The Bowl. What is it that connected with you in those tracks where you said, this feels enough like me that I can pull this off?
Well, a song like The Bull, both Luke Dick was a co-writer on both, who me and Luke write a lot together. We wrote a couple songs on the Wild Ones record. And I was over there, we just got done writing, and he said he had a couple songs for me, and the first one was The Bull. And a song like The Bull would have never made the Wild Ones record. I had to go through what I went through with Wild Ones for The Bull to make sense. You and I have had these conversations. You've been to the shows where you've seen how strong the fan base is, but yet radio, it wasn't working, it wasn't connecting. So that was the struggle. So when I heard a song like The Bull, and I'd heard all the naysayers and the doubters, like, okay, well, Nashville's in such a little bubble so often. They're in a huge bubble so often. And it's always perceived that, okay, whatever hit songs that work on the radio, those are the artists that are happening, and a lot of those artists can't sell out a bathroom. But yet, so it was that thing of, I had that chip on my shoulder about that, where I knew that something real and authentic was happening on the road, and with that record. So when I went in to make this record and then Luke played that song for me, it just resonated with me so much, where that was everything I wanted to say, and it felt like something I would have said. So it was my first time. I was like, I have to record this.
I think so much, to arrive at a place where The Bull makes sense obviously means that you carried through, that you stayed steadfast. A lot of people would end up sort of giving people maybe what they wanted. There's a lot of people who depend on your careers. You have techs and publicists and managers and all these people who sort of need you to succeed. How did you get to a place where you're at The Bull and not singing a song that is maybe not authentic to you?
Maddie, I told myself a long time ago, and I've stuck to it. I told myself a long time ago, I want to be able to lay my head on my pillow every night and knowing that I did this journey the way I wanted to do it and not be influenced by all the outside pressures. I definitely was sent songs in the process of making this record that I know are big records, and I'm going to hear them on the radio. It was probably #1 songs. I just felt like they were very, it was just fodder. It was just words with nothing behind it. And I also felt like I could interchange about 12 artists into that spot to sing those lyrics and that same melody, and that feels like the same groove of so much stuff I'm hearing, where I never want to be a part of that. I want to do it my way. I want to stay authentic to myself at all times, and knowing that might be, the end of my career doing it that way. But I can rest knowing that than doing it the other way and it failing. I couldn't sleep doing that.
Well, now that you're at a place, you've mentioned it earlier, the reviews have been extremely positive. Sales are very, very strong. Tour is obviously coming up. How do you look back on that time now? Like, this is all, you've arrived at a positive place.
For me, this record embodies so much of who I am and what I'm about and what I've wanted to say for a while. These are the songs, these are the songs that have been waiting on me to write, and I had to go through all I went through to get there. So to see, I've yet, every fan that's come up to me, they've been like, this is hands down their favorite record that I've done. It means everything to me, and I had to go through everything I went to get to this place, and I truly am at a very happy place. Like, I'm having a blast playing music, and I normally always have a good time playing music, but I'm having a blast soaking all of it in and just letting however the chips fall, how they fall.
That's awesome. There is not a song called Slowheart. Maybe you can explain for people where Slowheart comes from. You've got a band called the Slowhearts.
Yeah. My former guitar player, Dave Lapsley, years ago, I was dealing with a certain thing, and he just said, you're a Slowheart, and that's okay. And I thought I knew what he meant, but, I said, elaborate. And he said, well, you hold your cards close to you. You're not one that's just going to wear it on your sleeve a lot. He says you do in your music a lot, but not in person. And you really evaluate situations before you show how you feel. And he said it's okay being a Slowheart. So I ended up naming the bands the Slowhearts and the fans. And with the long journey it took to make this record, I just felt like it was time to name the record that.
So now you finally understand what a Slowheart is.
Yes, I do.
I like that.
You're one too, man. As long as I've known you.
It's true. That's all the questions we have from me. We've got a couple people in the audience who are looking to speak.
Hi.
Hey.
So, a couple of songs on this record, like Guitar Man or Last Shot, they were songs that you've sort of performed live before. So what made you want to put those on this record as opposed to some other songs that you only do live?
Well, first off, Guitar Man, I wrote that right after the Wild Ones record had come out. So had I written it before, I might have thrown it on that record. But I think that I've just had so many singer-songwriters come up to me and somehow they found that song virally and have just told me how much that song meant to them. And I guess I kind of wanted to always put a song like that out that's very autobiographical about my life and how I felt before the success happened. And it's just kind of my tip of the cap, too, for the dreamers out there that are still going after it.
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering about your writing process. Being a Slowheart and knowing that what you're writing will be listened to by millions of people, does that change how you approach writing and sharing your personal life?
No, it doesn't. But I have thought about what you said. Yeah. I mean, I've had so many people come up to me and tell me very detailed personal stories about songs I've written. I had somebody tell me last year, that they heard the song. Him and his wife heard the song "Complicated" on the highway at different times, like they were living in different states and they were separated, and both of them heard that song and they called each other up and the marriage was back on. They were back engaged and now they're married. They came to the show and they were like, that whole song changed their life. So knowing that your songs hold that kind of weight, it definitely makes you look at it. But I never want to let things like commercial success, or even if it affects people in different ways, affect how I get out what I got to say.
That's great. And then we have one more.
Hi. With all the different venues that you played for this record, where's your favorite place to go to?
Man, that's a tough question because there's so many places for so many different reasons. It's almost impossible to answer what's my favorite place to go to. I can tell you that one of my most magical nights ever playing music was actually in Australia, headlining CMC last spring, being that far away from home and feeling the energy that I felt from that crowd that night and knowing every single word to the Wild Ones record was a pretty special thing for me.
That's great. And then we're going to take a break and Kip will perform after this. Thank you.
Yes.